My name's Angelo, and welcome to We Want Picks. I'm going to break down the entire UFC Mexico fight card, giving you my picks, predictions, and DraftKings plays. UFC 298 was wildly successful for us with DraftKings, and one of our premium members put up almost $24,000 in winning DraftKings lineups from this entry here. He had Topuria, Dvalishvili, Rogerio de Lima, Ming Yang, Hernandez, and Woodburn. This was a phenomenal lineup, and he made a ton of money. But it's not just him. Our premium members historically have had wild success. We are almost at the $500,000 mark from premium members. This is only the last 6 months. This isn't a year. This isn't years. This is 6 months worth of tickets from premium members. It's not a coincidence that they continue to absolutely dominate week in and week out. That is not a coincidence because our premium members have full access to everything we do. And they get that access by going to WeWantPicks.com. They click Become a Member at the top. It's only $10. $10. Look at the success that our premium members have been having week in and week out for that $10 membership. And that $10 is going to get you a full suite of DraftKings specific tools. You're going to come in here. You're going to get breakdowns of who should be in your cash core lineups, who should be in your GPP lineups. You're going to get a cheat sheet. This cheat sheet will be loaded on Friday afternoons after the weigh-ins with the ownership projections, the scoring projections, and the leverage plays. I've said this many times over, but we quite literally have the best ownership projections in the game. I pay somebody to do these. He's like a little math wizard behind the scenes, putting everything together, doing his own formulas, and week in and week out, we crush the actual DFS companies. We destroy Osimo, we destroy Roto Grinders, and these numbers continue to be the best. And then on top of that, we'll go ahead and rank each fighter by salary group depending on what type of entry you want to make. And you obviously will have full access to our DraftKings optimizer, which again will be preloaded with the best ownership projections in the game. WeWantPicks.com, click Become a Member at the top, and you could be like Squirts. Wild name. But you could be like Squirts, putting up big boy tickets, or the rest of these people week in and week out. WeWantPicks.com, click Become a Member at the top. Let's go ahead and break down this card. We have 13 fights. So that means we have 26 fighters. And last week at UFC 298, only one single underdog won. Only one underdog won. So last week, you had a couple of losers in your lineups and you made a couple of dollars. This week, I think it's going to be a little tricky. I think there is a lot of live underdogs. So let's go ahead and break this down. Opening up the UFC Mexico card, we have Muhammad Naimov, and he is taking on Erik Silva. Muhammad Naimov has proven to be a very good fighter. Knocked out Jamie Mullarkey quick, fast, and in a hurry. It was the second round, not the first. But he did connect, landed that big power, and got that done. His last fight against Nathaniel Wood, he dropped Nathaniel. They didn't record that. He didn't get credit for that, but he dropped Nathaniel. He also got dropped. He had some takedowns. It was a dog fight, but he got it done. He put up some good points, and Nathaniel Wood's a good fighter. So now they have Muhammad Naimov at $9,100. He should win this. He's got power in his hands. He can wrestle when he needs to. My only concern for him and everybody else on this card, so I'm going to try to not repeat it constantly, is the elevation. On one hand, it might mean nothing. These are lighter fighters, the lower weight classes, right? We don't have any sloppy heavyweights trying to catch their breath on the top of a mountain. But people like Muhammad Naimov already don't have the most spectacular cardio. He's slowed down a little bit in that Nathaniel Wood fight. Now you throw him at elevation. This could be a weird fight where he's beating the absolute piss out of Erik Silva and then gets exhausted and finds himself in some trouble. I do think he wins, but Erik Silva is a dangerous guy. Erik Silva, he's an aggressive grappler. He's going to do wild shit in his feet with his striking. He's going to walk forward, throw big, and have some fun on his feet. He'll jump, he'll spin. It's almost like he doesn't care what happens on the feet because he just wants it on the ground because he is very, very good on the ground. He's an aggressive grappler. He's going to get you to the ground. He's going to chase submissions and really look to get something going. He did just get submitted by downtown DJ Brown about a year and a half ago. Hasn't fought since then. So Muhammad Naimov should beat Erik Silva. He's going to hit way harder. He could probably get the can definitely get the takedowns going and can probably survive on the ground. It's not like Erik Silva's a 5-time world champion. He's just very good and aggressive. Muhammad Naimov should win. $9,100 probably will be worth that money. And honestly, it's a discount if you look at the betting odds. Betting odd-wise, Muhammad Naimov is a 6-1 favorite. So Muhammad Naimov probably going to be in my lineup. I bet he's the most owned fighter on this card. That'll be my prediction. We'll see what happens when our ownership projections get released later today after all the weigh-ins are done. But for now, Muhammad Naimov in the lineup. I do worry about his cardio just a smidge. Then we have Felipe dos Santos, and he is taking on Victor Altamirano. Felipe dos Santos, another good fighter. $9,200. He's priced accordingly. He's one of many shoot-a-box fighters on this card. The shoot-a-box guys, as you know, if you watched UFC 298, you saw Vanderlei Silva is going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. If you have never seen a Vanderlei Silva fight, go to YouTube, go watch some highlights. That guy was a savage, like just violent savage. He is an original shoot-a-box fighter, him and Shogun Rua. And they know violence. All the shoot-a-box fighters do. They all come forward, bombing away like wild animals, and then they all have got good jiu-jitsu. They all are very hittable. None of them have striking defense at all. They all just get hit, and they don't have the best cardio in the world. But Felipe dos Santos, like the rest of this shoot-a-box camp, is aggressive. He's dangerous, pretty good everywhere, and his hair is not going to be its natural color. He does get hit. He can be countered. He can be taken down. He is pretty good on the ground. He's got some offensive takedowns as well. They're not great, and Felipe already slows down in fights. Let alone fights at elevation, and all anybody can talk about is the shoot-a-box guys didn't get to Mexico till the other day. They're all going to be tired. They might. That's the problem with elevation. You know, and everybody might be out here making a bigger deal of it than it is, right? Everybody might be, there's people that put together charts. Who lives on a mountain? Who lives underwater? How heavy they breathe? Do they snore at night? Do they need a sleep apnea machine? Like the amount of analysis people are putting into this is a little ridiculous. These are professional fighters. Let's hope they're in shape. I do think elevation can affect these fights somewhat. I don't necessarily think it's going to take a fighter that was amazing, great cardio, was going to win, and now they're going to lose. I don't think that'll happen. What it will do is exaggerate people who already had some cardio issues. That's what it'll do. In this case, it's going to be interesting because Felipe already has some cardio issues, so I do imagine elevation is going to exaggerate it just a bit. But Felipe dos Santos, as dangerous as he is, he's fighting a pretty durable guy in Victor Altamirano. This guy's fast. He's powerful on his feet, but he's also patient. He takes his time. He can be calculated. He has an impressive 5-4 striking differential, and that speaks to just sort of his pressure and what he makes happen while he's standing in front of you. He is coming off this loss to Tim Elliott. But in his defense, Tim Elliott's a tough night out. He's going to come at you. He's going to grind. He's going to wrestle. That's not an easy fight for anybody. And also in his defense, he never settled. The dude was taken down, immediately working for, this is me working for stuff, immediately jiu-jitsuing. That's what we call it. He's immediately working off his back, never fully settled in, trying to make something happen, throwing up submissions, creating scrambles, and it was very, very impressive. So Felipe dos Santos is the more dangerous fighter here. Felipe dos Santos could absolutely win this fight and should win this fight. But does he finish a durable Victor Altamirano? I don't think so. But Felipe did look very good against Manuel Kopp in his last fight. So this is a tough fight to pick. But DraftKings-wise, I don't like Felipe dos Santos. I think he wins the fight. But if we're looking at a lineup and we have a budget, $9,200 on Felipe dos Santos, who's probably not going to wrestle, probably not going to get a finish, may not be worth that money. Where Victor Altamirano, even in his losses, 42 points, 31 points. Yeah, that's not a win. But if this is a card like last week, those 42 points could matter. So I'm not going to have Felipe dos Santos in my lineup. Yes, he is dangerous, but he already slows down. Elevation isn't going to help with that. And then to compound that, Victor Altamirano is a really tough, durable guy that you don't just knock out with 2 punches and then move on with your day. So Victor's probably the better DraftKings play, but Felipe should win this fight. Then we have another interesting fight. We have Dennis Bondar taking on Luis Rodríguez. Betting-wise, Dennis Bondar is actually the underdog. DraftKings, they made him the slight favorite. And that's because the line is bouncing back and forth. It's yo-yoing a bit. All of a sudden, Dennis is the underdog, then he's the favorite, then back to dog. It's basically even money with some slight variances every couple of days. But Dennis Bondar, I get it. I think he wins this fight. I think he should be the favorite. And I think $8,200 is good money. Yeah, he's winless in the UFC. And there's a couple of people on this card that cannot seem to fall into a win. But Dennis Bondar can absolutely win this fight. He's a wild man. He comes forward. He charges, just winging punches in all directions. Then he will drop down to your legs, pick you up, run you across the cage, and dump you down like Matt Hughes did it, and then Merab Dvalishvili after him. So Dennis Bondar is a dangerous guy, a busy guy, plenty of cardio, good power in his hands, can wrestle. Problem is he starts feeling himself. Gets a little too flashy, a little too dancy. You're going to see this Malcolm Gordon KO, TKO, while on its surface, this is insanely embarrassing. There was an injury there. There was a freak injury. I'm going to call it a freak injury. So that's why you're going to see the KO, TKO, similar to when we get to Brian Ortega. But don't look at this and say Dennis Bondar lost to Malcolm Gordon. Fade. He's taking on Luis Rodríguez, also Rodrigo Rodríguez. I don't know why DraftKings has his name. DraftKings is the only place I've seen his name like that. A couple of sports books, so I guess it's not the only place. What am I talking about? But you don't really see it it's not listed that way on the UFC website, Tapology, SureDog, but for some reason, DraftKings and a couple of sports books are like, nah, his name's Rodrigo. So Rodrigo Rodríguez. And if you're a big old school, here's a tangent, old school UFC fan like I am, Rico Rodriguez was a UFC heavyweight champion back in the day. What happened to that guy? It was like him and Tito Ortiz running the world. And I know he got a henna tattoo on his back. It was actually kind of crazy. He got a henna tattoo on his back from a sponsor. I think it was like Caesar's Palace or Full Tilt Poker or some shit like that. Huge tattoo on his back. And the UFC's like, wipe it off. And he's like, I can't. It's a henna tattoo. It's not marker. So they let him fight anyway because it was the main event. But it caused a lot of issues, and they changed a lot of rules and policies after that. It was pretty crazy. Good for him. Anyway, we have Rodrigo Rodríguez taking on Dennis Bondar. Rodrigo Rodríguez. This guy's a patient striker. He takes his time. He does have some real power in there. He wants to plot forward, find his spots, and then he'll just lay it out looking for a finish. He has no problem just eating leg kicks so that he can counter with a hook on the other side. He is dialed in. He is laser focused. Good enough chin, but he is hittable because his hands, they're not here. They're like here. It's kind of weird, actually. But he does have some decent takedowns, decent BJJ. He is the slight favorite in this matchup. You can get him at underdog money in DraftKings here. I personally think Bondar wins. I think he's going to come forward, get those big takedowns, score some good points there, make it happen. But I fully understand people on this side. Bondar hasn't won in the UFC yet. He does get a little reckless, if you will. He starts to think that he's the greatest fighter of all time. And then instead of focusing on what he's supposed to do, starts doing flashy shit and then loses. It makes no sense. So if you want to go on the Rodriguez side, I totally get it. But I do think whoever wins this fight will score well. If Rodriguez wins, that means he's piecing up Dennis, dropping him, making something happen. If Dennis wins, that means he's getting takedowns, scoring those points, getting control time. Pick your side here. My side is going to be Dennis Bondar. Or Denise. Then we have Faraz Ziam taking on butt-scooting jiu-jitsu nerd Claudio Puelles. Faraz Ziam, let me start with Claudio because I think the order that I do this sort of matters when I do the pick. We got Claudio Puelles. This guy is an absolute nerd. A jiu-jitsu nerd. Yeah, he's got all these incredible wins. 3 of these wins are knee bars, which is wildly impressive. But all of these people were people that were willing to go to the ground with him, people that he could take down. Then he fought Dan Hooker, a dude who's a far better striker than Claudio Puelles. A dude with some pretty good takedown defense was like, nah, dude, what am I, an idiot? I'm not going to go to the ground with you. That's dumb. And because Claudio Puelles' wrestling is average to below average, he couldn't get Dan Hooker to the ground on his own, so he resorted to laying on his back like an upside-down turtle, begging, please come down here. Please, I'll scoot. So I'm not just like, it was a sad, pathetic display of a generation of fighters that shouldn't exist anymore. If you can't get a fight to the ground on your own, then what are you doing? What do you do all day? Your entire job, you get paid to fist fight. That's your job. What do you do all day when you're getting ready for work? You don't practice to get to fight to the ground? You only practice, I'm already on the ground. Let's just assume I'm already on the ground. Knowing full well that at your job, you start standing. I'll never get it. But scooting jiu-jitsu nerds, I think society has moved past them, and hopefully they're a dying breed. With all of that being said, Claudio Puelles, if he does end up on the ground, or if you do end up on the ground with him, you could be in some trouble. The guy is nuts dangerous on the ground. Very, very dangerous on the ground. Problem is, everybody figured it out. So if you can keep it standing, he has nothing to offer. Nothing. But if you can't keep it standing, you're going to end up in some trouble. Claudio Puelles has 3 knee bar wins in the UFC. That's crazy. Knee bars are not easy to get to begin with. To have 3 of them is wild. Claudio Puelles is very, very good on the ground. Everywhere else, absolute bag of shit. He is taking on Firas Ziam. And I'm going to get a comment. How dare you? Shut up. This is Ultimate Fighting Championships, not Flow Grappling, not Fury Grappling. Ultimate Fighting Championships. To be one-dimensional and then insult the viewers by going out there and pretending that you're an amazing, well-rounded fighter is crazy. We just watched Carlos Vera embarrass generations of his family. There's going to be 3 generations of Vera children that are just, I can't watch. Because their great-grandfather embarrassed the shit out of him, rolling for knee bars over and over just to get his face pounded in. That's Claudio Puelles. I'm sorry. Guys, I'm sorry about the rant. I'm sorry. I've been wrestling my whole life. I've been doing jiu-jitsu for the better half. I'm 40. I've been doing it for 20-something years. You'll never catch me rolling around never. Obviously, it's the wrestling base. That's not going to have me rolling around like a nerd. But I would be ashamed. Daddy, can we come watch jiu-jitsu? Yeah, honey. And then how could they look at me again? That's my dad? On his back like that? What a fucking loser. He's taking on Firas Ziam. The reason I went with Claudio first is Firas's style matters very much in this fight. Firas is a long, rangy striker who avoids danger at all costs. He's not an exciting guy to watch, but he is very skilled, very technical, patient, and measured. He will stay on the outside one punch at a time. Stay on the outside one punch at a time. And he will win those fights, taking his time, doing the right things. There's no reason to put himself in the harm's way, so he doesn't. And it has been very successful for him. Yes, he lost to Terrence McKinney 2 years ago. But Terrence McKinney's a wild beast. That guy is insanely athletic, insanely dangerous, great wrestling, great power, all of those things. But outside of that fight, he takes his time. He does the right things. That's why there's so many decisions here. And it's going to be more of the same. Firas Ziam is going to beat Claudio Puelles. Claudio's probably not going to be able to take him down. I don't know if he'll be butt scooting again. Hopefully he learned his lesson about how pathetic that is. But I do think Firas Ziam wins this fight. I also think you should avoid him at all costs. The guy's boring as shit. Does not put up numbers. 70 points, not even, 69 points. You spent $8,700 on him to beat Jai Herbert. And he put up 69 points. I'm furious. Furious. He has never covered his salary. Oh, here we go. One time he covered it against Figlak because he went wrestle heavy. He's not going to go wrestle heavy in this fight. So outside of that, never has covered his salary. 46 points in a win. A win. You have to try to score that low. This honestly is going to be the worst fight in the card to watch. It's going to be terrible. You should not have Firas Ziam in your lineup. If you want to have some Claudio Puelles exposure, even after all the ranting I did, yeah, obviously, if he wins, he's going to put up some big numbers. So if you have multiple lineups and multiple entries, definitely have some exposure to Claudio, none to Firas Ziam. None. Then we have Erik Chairez taking on Daniel Lacerda. This is a rematch. We saw some of this fight back in September. No contest. And the reason there was no contest is because Edgar Chairez lucked himself into a submission, had the power, I think it was a power guillotine, had that going. And the referee thought that Daniel Lacerda was limp, thought he was out. Separated, oh, you win, you win, you win. And then Daniel Lacerda's like, yo, what the hell? I'm totally fine. And so then they actually did the right thing. The commission did the right thing and said, okay, that was our bad. We shouldn't have stopped the fight. We did. We are here for your safety. I felt that you were unsafe. I was wrong. So instead of screwing you out of, this fight and having it register as a loss, we'll call it a no decision. It's the referee's fault. That was the right thing to do. And they honestly, lately, the last year or two, have done an excellent job with, I messed up, my bad, we're going to call it a no contest. And that's what happened here. What I will say, Edgar Chairez, skill-wise, he's a durable guy. He's got some decent striking, some decent grappling, Mexican tough. Like, he's a tough, gritty, durable guy. Made his UFC debut against Tatsuro Taira on short notice. You'll see he had a knockdown. He had some grappling success as well. I think it was a really tight guillotine in there. And he got a lot of credit for this loss. A lot of credit for this loss. I think too much credit. But he is good. He is durable. If the referee didn't stop this fight against Daniel Lacerda, it was going to happen anyway. The referee stopped it too early. You have to call it a no contest because it was too early. But in all likelihood, all reality, nothing was going to change over the next however long, and he was going to end up submitting him anyway. He is a very expensive $9,300. The reason he's an expensive $9,300 is because poor Daniel Lacerda can't find a win. Cannot find a win. I mean, look at this record. Lost to Molina, finished. Lost to Figueiredo, sub. Lost to Altamirano, finished. Lost to Vergara, finished. Edgar Chairez, no decision. I mean, this poor dude cannot find a win in the UFC. And it's honestly shocking because he is good. Daniel Lacerda is good. You'll see him as Daniel De Silva in some places. I don't know what the hell's going on with his last name, but he's very good. He's got good hands. He's got dangerous grappling. The problem is he's got like 2 minutes of good energy, and then that's it from there. And all of these people somehow weather the storm. The CJ Vergara weathering the storm was insane. CJ Vergara was 99.9% knocked out cold. Like 3 times. Then full sprinted around the cage. Like, stay away, stay away. Full sprinted around the cage. Somehow survived. And then ended up winning that fight in the second round. Because, as we know, Daniel Lacerda has a minute and a half of cardio. So, Chairez should win. He's a very expensive price point. But, I mean, if history tells us anything, he should get here, he should win again. What I will say is Daniel Lacerda was winning that fight against Chairez. He was winning that fight. And then Chairez just lucked into that power guillotine. And then that's how the fight ended and all that crap. But it's not as if Chairez looked unbelievable and then that happened. He was losing and then that happened. But I still think he's going to win this fight. Daniel Lacerda, dangerous guy, fun guy, but I mean, damn, that dude cannot win a fight. Then we have a Jesus Aguilar taking on Mateus Mendonca. Again, a couple of young guys, light guys, high volume kind of guys. Jesus Aguilar is a solid grappler. He will find guillotine submissions. And he doesn't just wait for you to shoot and then suck it up. He will like literally be in a grappling exchange and then shove your head and then look for it. It's his go-to submission. He has 7 stoppage wins. 4 of them are by guillotines. More than half of his stoppage wins are by guillotine. It's very impressive or pathetic. Depends. The way he does it isn't nerdy. Because there are guys that all they do is look for guillotine. They don't try to scramble. They don't try to stand up. They do nothing other than just guillotine. No, I learned it day one and I'm going to keep trying it. That's not him. He'll actually set it up. Try to force guillotines. Try to make stuff happen. He doesn't just get his ass kicked and then just jump guillotine. He can strike as well, though. He's got good combinations. Decent power. Can be a bit wild, but he is active. He is fun to watch. And he just knocked out Shannon Ross in 17 seconds. So Jesus Aguilar, pretty good, pretty dangerous guy. He is taking on Mateus Mendonca. He's another shoot-a-box fighter. He's another Daniel Lacerda, except more durable with more cardio. Dyed hair, aggressive on his feet, aggressive on the ground, but very hittable. They're all hittable. There's no strike. Outside of Ian Gary, who's not a true shoot-a-box fighter, there is no striking defense whatsoever. So we got Mateus Mendonca, good striking, dangerous, good wrestling, good jiu-jitsu, wants to come forward. He is primarily a grappler, wants to come forward, get you to the cage, get you to the ground. He'll mix in some elbows, some spinning stuff, because why not? And he's going to look to grind. He has $8,400 in DraftKings. And if he gets the wrestling going, he should be $8,400. Absolutely. Because he can grind, he can get you to the ground, he can work from there. But he also could have some cardio issues. I mean, this is a tough go. Bajrat in UFC debut, that's not great, obviously. But he did have a couple of takedowns. They traded many takedowns in that fight. He had a couple of takedowns. He was able to survive. The cardio was a little better than a lot of people thought it was going to be. So what I will say is I think Mateus Mendonca wins this fight. I think he gets it done. I think he can make sure that he avoids a guillotine. He can close the distance, avoid... I don't know if Jesus has insane power or Shannon Ross just has no chin. It's probably a combination of the two. So Mateus Mendonca should win this fight. $8,400. I'm probably going to leave these guys out because there's a lot of question marks here. There's not great value on either side. And Mendonca, I mean, hasn't won a fight yet in the UFC. And Jesus Aguilar has. And Jesus Aguilar's not bad. So I do think Mendonca wins, but I'm probably going to avoid this for DraftKings. We got 13 fights to pick from, 26 fighters. I don't need to throw everybody in every lineup. Then we have Hani Barcelos taking on Cristian Quinonez. This is an interesting fight. Hani Barcelos is sort of a tried and true guy. He is on the downswing, has been having an unfortunate run here. He's 1-4 in his last 5. It started with the Timur Valiev fight. This was a back-and-forth war. Timur Valiev is a tough outing for a lot of people. Hani Barcelos, 5-time Brazilian national champion wrestler. A lot of people think Hani won this fight, and he didn't get the decision. But this is where it really came off the rails. Victor Henry shows up, UFC debut, and he beat Hani Barcelos. He outworked him, beat him, outworked him, and it was like, what the hell is going on here? Then, okay, he's back on track. He beats Trevin Jones in a great win. 2 takedowns, a knockdown, plenty of control time, put up some good points. Then they said, here's Umar, smoked. And then the Kyler Phillips loss is really when I'm like, I think Hani Barcelos is done. Kyler Phillips, who's not especially dangerous, just really busy and active, dropped the 5-time national champion wrestler. Dropped him. And then outworked him. And yes, Hani had some takedowns, scored 38 points. He was an underdog in that fight, scored 38 points. Not terrible for a loser. A loser as in like lost the fight, not in real life. Guy might be great, I don't know. Anyway, Hani Barcelos is, I think he's listed at 37, 38. But as we know, some of these fighters from certain parts of the world and certain backgrounds, famously Jose Aldo, their ages are not correct. They don't have documentation. So when they come to America and they need documentation, they go to the town hall or whatever the equivalent is and say, hey, I need a birth certificate. They're like, well, how old are you? And they're like, yeah, this is my date. Okay. And they write it down. And that's not, I mean, this is like true public information. I don't know if Hani is one of those guys. There are rumors on the internet that he's older than he is listed as, and that would make sense. He's fighting like he's older than he's listed. He is slowing down at an incredible pace. But skill-wise, phenomenal wrestler. Very good technical striker. He's not dangerous, though. He's not going to knock you out. He will take you down a million times. He will grind you out. But that doesn't happen often. Yes, he took down Trevin Jones a few times, but he also stood around and struck with him for a while, too. He's taking on Cristian Quinonez. I'll tell you right now, Christian's not the better fighter, right? The 5-time Brazilian national champion wrestler is the better fighter. But Cristian Quinonez is a relentless guy. Tons of forward pressure. He wants to bait you into a brawl, and then he'll look to grapple. Technique is not the cleanest, but his pressure, his pace is nuts. Just a crazy pace, a lot of pressure. He'll create scrambles. He'll create chaos. And I think he can get this done. $7,600 I think is good value because he's a guy that the crowd will be behind. He's a guy that I know will never stop. And we just watched Raoni Barcelos lose to someone similar in Kyler Phillips. He just lost to somebody that was busy, creates chaos, never settles in. And I think Cristian Quinonez is that guy and can do that again here. So Raoni would have to be insanely measured, wrestle perfect, and do all those things to win this fight. And he very well may, but I'm going to shoot my shot at $7,600 on the younger, fresher, nonstop local guy. I'm getting stuffy. I think I'm getting sick. I traveled for work this week, and that's what happens. I even stopped drinking. What the hell's going on here? Then we have Manuel Torres taking on Chris Duncan. This should be a very fun fight. Almost this entire card is going to be fun because Manuel Torres is a fun guy, well-rounded guy. He's very dangerous in his striking, dangerous in his grappling as well. His striking's not the most technical, but he does use knees really well in the clinch. He loves throwing head kicks. He loves blasting your legs. He's a long, rangy guy. And he uses that while striking. He'll keep you at distance. And while grappling, he's going to wrap all the long submissions up. He's going to get triangles. He's going to get power guillotines. Anything that is long and uses leverage, he will work that. And he's a good fighter. 2-0 in the UFC. The Mata win is solid. The Camacho win, great win, obviously, but Camacho wasn't exactly a proven entity at that point. But Manuel Torres, another local guy, dangerous on the ground, dangerous on the feet, long and rangy. He is fighting Chris Duncan. Chris Duncan might literally be the most durable guy in the UFC. It's crazy. It's crazy how durable he is. He gets dropped and almost put out in every single fight that he's in. Not every fight, obviously, but you get what I'm saying. And then he just sits back up like The Undertaker and keeps fighting. He recovers well. He recovers instantly. He is heavy-handed in his strikes. He is absolutely tough as hell. He's never out of a fight because, as I mentioned, he just rises from the dead. He's an accurate striker. He keeps his hands low, tons of power, and a willingness to bang. He can grapple. He's got 9 takedowns in the UFC, if you include the Contender Series, which won't show up on this screen. He's a very good fighter. I do think Manuel Torres wins. I also think you need exposure to Chris Duncan in DraftKings. So, Manuel Torres, I believe, wins this fight. Manuel Torres probably should be in your lineup. He's a good price point, and he's going to get 10 points when he inevitably drops Chris Duncan. Because everybody drops him, and everybody gets 10 points for it. But Chris Duncan should be in a couple of your lineups. If you do just one super safe cash entry DraftKings lineup, probably not a Chris Duncan, right? He's not affordable enough. If he was 7,200, yes. 79, not necessarily. But if you're doing multiple lineups in multiple tournaments, then you need some Chris Duncan exposure for sure. Because if he wins, he'll put up some decent numbers, as he does. He has covered this $7,900 salary in his first fight. The Yanal Ashmouse fight didn't quite cover his salary, but Yanal's he will stand there, plant, and throw big. So Chris came forward with a little bit of a different game plan there. But that's sort of a pick your side as far as DraftKings is concerned, but I do think that Manuel Torres gets it done. Then we have Yazmin Jauregui taking on Sam Hughes. Yazmin is not worth $9,500. Do not put her in your lineup. She wins this fight. Do not put her in your lineup. She is a powerful striker. She does have a pretty promising career in front of her. Great pressure, impressive combination. She'll enter the pocket with a high kick, and then she'll finish with overhands and uppercuts. If she smells blood, she's like a shark. She is not going to stop. She's going to go right for it and try to get that finish. She's got some good grappling as well, good body lock takedowns, good takedown defense. She was just absolutely sparked by Denise Gomes in like literally, it was listed at 20 seconds. It felt like a half of a second. It was so fast. Just dropped her ass, done almost immediately. But Yazmin is good, is dangerous, and we saw that in the Nunes fight, the Lucindo fight. She obviously won that fight, and it was nice to see that she can go to a decision because she does historically have a good amount of finishes on her record. And how many times have we seen a lot of finishers, a fight goes a little long, and they fall apart? We know that she can go the distance. But she's taking on Sam Hughes. And while Sam Hughes is not the most technical fighter, while Sam Hughes is not especially gifted, meaning she's not insanely fast, she's not insanely strong, she doesn't hit insanely hard, like she has to work really hard for everything that she has. And it shows in her fights because she grinds and grinds and grinds. And yes, she was finished by Tecia Torres in 2020. Since then, even in her losses, she is tough, she is in your face, she doesn't quit on herself, she is gritty. Sam Hughes could play spoiler. She could beat Yazmin if she comes forward and it looks like when she just absolutely beat the crap out of Elise Reed. It could look like that. But even if Sam Hughes doesn't win, she's not getting finished. And Yazmin is not going to be worth that salary. That salary is too far gone. Sam Hughes is tough. She's a pressure fighter, tries to be a bully. Yazmin's big, so I don't think Sam Hughes is going to be able to bully her here. But Sam may have some success. Is Sam worth throwing in your lineup as a long shot? I don't think so. I do think Yazmin gets it done, but Sam is too durable to spend that kind of money on Yazmin Jauregui in your lineup. Then we have Raul Rosas Jr. taking on Ricky Turcios. This is going to be an interesting breakdown because I do think Raul Rosas Jr. wins this fight, and I do think he should be in your lineup. Because if it looks anything like his wins, he scores good points. $9,000, he scores good points. He's going to come forward, grapple like crazy. He did just knock out Mitchell, but that was like it was actually kind of sloppy how he landed it. Like Mitchell was circling out. It was just a big, huge looping hook that happened to land. He landed it. He's got some power in his hands. He got a knockout. Good for him. Good for him. But he is a grappler. He is a nonstop wrestler, nonstop grappler, great pace, all of that. Problem is, as we saw in this Christian Rodriguez loss, the C-Rod loss, he fades big. Dude put up all 25 of these points like in the first round, basically. 5 minutes and 50 seconds of control time. All of this was the first round. The first round was a great round for him. And then he gassed, just straight up gassed. Tried too hard, squeezing, doing too much. And Christian Rodriguez just took his time, absorbed the grappling damage early, and then as the fight went on, he was still fresh, defending takedowns and sort of embarrassing Raul Rosas. Keep in mind, Raul Rosas is only 19 years old. He is young, very young, but he is good. And hopefully this loss to Christian Rodriguez inspired him to be better. Like, okay, I'm not going to steamroll everybody. I need better cardio. I need to learn when to squeeze on everything and when to take my time and ride it out. So Raul Rosas Jr., very good fighter, very promising career, super young guy, should be able to get the takedowns and control and all of that. But he is fighting Ricky Turcios. And while Ricky Turcios hasn't fought in a while, he beat Kevin Natividad in a fight that a lot of people think that he lost. A lot of people think Kevin won this fight. But anyway, Ricky Turcios, not especially great anywhere. But what he does do very, very well is create scrambles. You can take him down, but he will scramble his ass off, create chaos. He's got plenty of cardio. And if Raul Rosas hasn't fixed his cardio issues, Ricky Turcios can lose the first round, but make him work, create some scrambles in the second, create some scrambles in the third, and then win a decision. Because Raul slowed down, got exhausted, and Ricky was just making him work for everything. That is my concern here, that Ricky's got great scramble skills. He doesn't even end up on top. It's not even like he's winning every scramble, but he just creates chaos in the grappling exchanges that are exhausting to deal with. So Ricky's a somewhat durable guy. Ricky can make Raul work really hard. I do think Raul wins, and history says if he wins, he scores really well. So I'm going to trust Raul. He is listed as an American, but we know the Mexican crowd will be behind him. I'm going to trust Raul. I will put him in my lineup at $9,000. Then we have Daniel Zellhuber taking on Francisco Prado. Daniel Zellhuber should not be in your lineup. I think he wins this fight. He's not worth $8,900. But again, I do think he wins this fight. Daniel Zellhuber is an impressive striker. Very aggressive, dynamic, incredibly long limbs that gives him power. He can manage range. He's got good leverage in the grappling. He's got really long legs, but can defend takedowns. And I say but because super tall guys, you can shoot on them, and there's a lot of leg to grab there. But he defends really, really well. If he is taken down, he's wrapping you up. He's using that length to threaten with submissions. He is coming off of this submission win over Christos Gallegos, which paid him a fight of the night bonus. But he's not the most insanely dangerous guy in the world. And $8,900 is a lot of money to spend for somebody that, even in a submission win, only put up 85 points. 76 points in this decision win against Lando Venata. And that had a knockdown in it. So I don't think Daniel Zellhuber is necessarily worth the money, but I do think he wins because I think he can be more technical, manage the range against Francisco Prado. Francisco Prado is a tough guy that has insane knockout power. He just sparked. Otman Zaitar was like 39, 40, something like that. But Francisco did what you expect a young, hungry striker to do against a 40-year-old. He came in hot, big looping punches, and got it done. And that's all his fights. He comes forward, he loops, he throws big head kicks, nice Muay Thai clinch, insane power, but he keeps his head straight up in the air and he can get touched. I think Zellhuber will avoid the chaos early, land the strikes, piece him up, stay on the outside. Prado will fade as the fight goes on, and then we got Zellhuber just technical point fighting his way to a decision. So Prado will, you're doing a whole bunch of lineups for a large tournament. Obviously, he's $7,300, and he has one punch fight-ending power. A little bit of a sprinkle in a couple of your lineups, but Zellhuber should win this fight. Co-main event, Yair Rodriguez versus Brian Ortega. I'm nervous about this one, okay? I thought Ortega could win this fight, and now every day that goes by, I'm regretting saying that more and more. But let me walk you through. We got Yair Rodriguez, insanely dynamic striker. We know this. Also a very good grappler. Will throw up submissions. Doesn't just accept positions. But he's been beat up. He's been in some wars. Holloway was a war. The Ortega, you're going to see KO, TKO. I'm going to call it a freak injury. Some Yair loyalists will say that wasn't a freak injury. Ortega was in a submission and he pulled out, and that's what blew out his shoulder. I don't agree with that. That's just not how I saw it. You want to be angry about it, you can be angry about it. That's your life decision. I do think Yair Rodriguez had success in the Ortega fight, the original one. This is a rematch. I think he had some success, but I think Ortega walked through it. He had his own success. He landed his own strikes. He got a takedown. And yes, Yair immediately threw up an armbar. But Ortega worked out of it, and then he blew out his shoulder. Did the armbar blow out the shoulder? No. I think Ortega can survive, pressure forward, get the takedowns, and grind out a win here. And if we want to do some comparisons, we watched Yair Rodriguez against Volkanovski. Volkanovski, Jacob's going to go on, do his head, but Volkanovski came forward, pressure, a whole bunch of takedowns, eventually finished Yair Rodriguez. Max Holloway, pressure, and we watched Yair Rodriguez, I want to say, break later in that fight. He didn't keep coming forward trying to finish. But Brian Ortega, let's go to Brian. Brian Ortega, when he fought Volkanovski, was every second of that fight he was trying something. He was just not as good, and that happens. There can only be one best fighter in the world. So you're going to fight fights where you're just not the better fighter and you'll lose. And that's what happened when he fought Volkanovski. But he doesn't quit on himself. And not that Yair quit on himself, but you can see he was a little bit defeated. With all of this being said, every day that goes by, I do get a little more nervous. Like, shit, man. Yair is just so dynamic striking, so dangerous on his feet. Brian Ortega hasn't fought in a year and a half. If Brian Ortega can't get this to the ground and doesn't have continued wrestling success, Yair Rodriguez is just going to piece him up at distance. So I am probably going to avoid this fight, personally, because I am on the Ortega side. But this is a 5-round fight. You have 5 rounds of points to score. So you should have one of these guys in your lineup. If we look at Brian Ortega scored 54 points in a 5-round fight against Volkanovski. That's not great. So Yair Rodriguez is definitely the better side here. He's definitely the side you should be on. Let's see what he scored in his 5-round with Max Holloway. 81 points in that 5-round fight with Max Holloway. And that's because of how many significant strikes he landed. So DraftKings-wise, Yair Rodriguez at $8,500 probably makes sense for your lineup. It is a 5-round fight. He is an entity that we know is dangerous early. And even if he does fade as the fight goes on, he could have some early success. I picked Brian Ortega, but I can't have Ortega in my DraftKings lineup. I don't trust him enough. And you'll notice I don't have a bet on Ortega as well if you watch the Best Bets video. So definitely put one of these. If you're convinced Ortega wins, he should be in your lineup. If you're convinced Yair wins, he should be in your lineup. $8,500. It is a 5-round fight. Then we have the main event. Brandon Moreno should absolutely be in your lineup. I think $8,800 is good money for a guy that has proven to be insanely tough, a guy that is a former world champion, a guy that can strike, can grapple, doesn't quit. A lot of people think he won the Pantoja fight. A lot of people think he was, I don't want to say robbed, but that he was not given the decision that he should have been given. He came in that fight. He had a couple of takedowns, landed well, scrambled well on the ground, but Pantoja's wrestling pressure seemed to be the difference. I think it came down to the 5th round, and Pantoja got a late takedown, and the judges were like, all right, let's give it to him. But Brandon Moreno is insanely tough. He can strike with some of the best of them. I mean, we watched what he did to Kai Kara France. He's been in all-time wars with Figgy. He already beat Royval once. That was another weird injury type situation, but we've seen him beat strikers. We've seen him beat grapplers. He no-decisioned Askarov in that weird fight. But he's a very, very durable guy who is also offensively dangerous, and he's taking on Brandon Royval, who gets finished. Brandon Royval gets finished. And Brandon Moreno can finish him. Brandon Royval is insanely dangerous. You'll see almost every single one of these fights is a finish, win or loss. Almost. Not all. He did just decision with Pantoja, but that's because Pantoja was just taking him down over and over and over, and it was a grappling match. So Brandon Royval's dangerous. Brandon Royval could obviously snatch something up. That's what he does. But I think Moreno makes sense here. He's a proven entity. He's a guy that is the former world champion. Will he be champion again? Maybe. I mean, I think he beat Pantoja already. And if he beats Royval, then let's do Moreno Pantoja 3, because that was also a rematch. I'm going to go Moreno here. $8,800 seems fair to me. Guys, that is the breakdown. Become a premium member. Unlock the cheat sheet. Unlock the optimizer. Join people like Squirts with these massive winning tickets and the rest of the community in all of their success. It's not a coincidence that our premium members have more success in DraftKings Fantasy than any other group of paying members at any other service. It's not a coincidence. WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member at the top. It is only $10 a month.